I'm not against paid software when it's good, for sure. Um, I just I don't like soft shareware models. I like. I'm trying to think of a good way to put it. I kind of love the because at the end of the day, you can't really make money with just donations. I mean, you just can't. It's very very difficult to even sustain one person, even if it has worldwide appeal. So when it comes to FOSS programs and actually making something sustainable for a programmer or a software developer, you have to have some kind of paid component to it, right? I think we all can agree on that. Donations alone just is never enough. So how do you do that? How do you do it in a tasteful way, but also a way that respects open source? And I love the id model. You know, how they did like Quake and Doom and all those. But I love the id model where it's all open source for the engine, all of the a lot of it's open source, but then they close source the actual content. So the content and a lot of like the art styles and music and that type of thing obviously is copyright, but that made a lot of sense, and it makes it so where people can improve upon that engine or use that engine for their own ends to mod out and do those types of things. That's really really cool. This is obviously a gaming example, but I love that model where that the base of it is open source, and then there's a paid version of it where there might be some content that is out, but it's I love that model. And how to do that in a software realm, I think for me, what I'm trying to do is have nothing paywalled with everything open source. So if you just use the PowerShell script, it's there. But I want like make a pretty executable that does the exact same thing, but does it in a different manner that's more powerful from a power user perspective. Like let's say you want to distribute it out to 1,000 computers, that type of thing. You could utilize the tool in that way that you couldn't over here easily in the PowerShell method. You can still distribute it out thousands of different ways, but using the PowerShell tool through there, it's going to show like a GUI. And I wanted to give options to where like maybe a sysadmin downloads it and then runs it through a specific set of instructions from the JSON file, and that would make sense. So then I get paid and you get a better experience, but at the same time, I'm not keeping anything from any individual user. So it's a balance to where the personal and individual users still get all the power, all the greatness, but you also get that paid version so you can actually make some money. So I mean, I think there's a balancing act to it, and also leveraging open source in a way that other people can benefit from it too. Not just from the end user perspective, but other programmers can use and learn from it. I think that's huge. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of where I'm at with that. I love the idea of it, but I really think we could utilize open source a lot more and still get paid. That's the thing. I think you can. That's the one. Now, obviously, like the Stallmans and like the crazy neckbeards of the world hate me and just would never accept any form of closed source bundled in like that. But at the end of the day, you can't open source everything. That there's no way to make any money in that regard. But I think you can do it in a way that still benefits a whole bunch of people, and everybody wins. That's just my thoughts. So I'm a bit on that side of the paid software, but I still think paid software should have an open source counterpart, or the open source product paid support model. So from a business perspective, let me put my business cap on here. I'm going to say some stuff that people will not like. The open source product paid support model doesn't work because in business, the only way to get ahead is if you make a product and then sell the product. And then you can have support for the product, but you cannot just pay for support, because you're selling your time at that point when you do paid support. And when you sell your time, you just never can make very much money. And from a business perspective, it just doesn't work that well. There's some people that have made it work well. I think there's two examples I can think of that does a pretty good job. Red Hat, obviously, is on the support model. And then XCP-ng was a fantastic virtualization, but they do have a kind of a paid counterpart, but it is still open source, the XCP-ng Center. So those are two open source slash paid support models that do make it work, but it is a very, very hard model to make much money on. So